It feels like every headline is shouting about AI these days, right? But today, we're going to cut through all that noise. We're going to dig in and find out what actual mission-driven professionals really want from all this new tech.
Yeah, we hear it constantly. AI is disrupting industries, it's changing the world, the whole shebang. But look, if you're a busy professional, you're probably asking a much simpler question. Something like, okay, great, but what's in it for me right now? How does this make my life easier and not just another complicated thing I have to learn?
So to get some real answers, we're diving into some fascinating market research. And they didn't just survey anyone. They specifically talked to mission-driven professionals. Think people in healthcare, in education, in social services. You know, the folks on the front lines. We are not talking about tech bros in Silicon Valley here. We're talking about people who are deeply invested in their communities. Okay, so who exactly are these people? Let's meet the folks behind the data, because knowing who they are is absolutely crucial to understanding what they really need. Well, the first thing that just jumps right off the page, the respondents were overwhelmingly women. I mean, a whopping 88% of the group. Right away, you know this is going to give us a totally different perspective than the one we usually get from the tech world.
And building on that, a really significant number of participants identified as Black or African American. This is so important because it means the insights we're about to see are grounded in the real-world experiences of a community whose voice is essential, but let's be honest, is often underrepresented in these big conversations about technology.
And to complete the picture, get this. The biggest age group was 35 to 44. This is so key. We're not hearing from students or tech hobbyists, no. We're hearing from mid-career professionals who are juggling demanding jobs, caregiving for family, and taking on leadership roles. The bottom line is, they are incredibly busy people.
Now this is where the data gets really juicy. When we look at how these professionals use and feel about AI, a fascinating contradiction starts to emerge. Let's call it the AI user's paradox.
So, on the one hand, they are not beginners, not even close. As you can see, the vast majority describe themselves as intermediate users. This means they're already in the game, using at least one AI tool on a regular basis for stuff like writing, creating content, or just plowing through administrative tasks. But, on the other hand, when you ask them to describe their attitude toward AI, the most common response is this: curious but unsure. Do you see the disconnect? They're engaged, but they don't feel confident. They're using the tools, but they feel like they aren't even scratching the surface of what's possible.
And that brings us to the heart of the paradox. If they're already regular users, what is holding them back? Why all this uncertainty? The answer might actually surprise you.
And there it is. This just hits the nail on the head. The number one obstacle isn't how complex the technology is. It's not some big fear of the unknown, or even the cost. It is simply a lack of time. Remember that demographic we just talked about? They are already stretched so thin, and learning a new skill, even a helpful one, just feels like another item on an endless to-do list.
And that time crunch is made so much worse by just feeling completely overwhelmed. I mean, with this constant flood of new AI information, they don't even know where to begin. They don't have a support system for when they get stuck, and they're worried about the costs of a bunch of different subscriptions. All of this makes learning AI feel like an unclimbable mountain.
So, you got this real tension between what they want from AI and what they're worried about. Let's explore that emotional core, this deep conflict between their hopes and their fears.
What's so interesting here is how clearly this lays out the two sides of the coin. Their hopes are incredibly practical. Save me time, help me feel less overwhelmed, improve the quality of my work. But their fears are significant and ethical. They're worried about data privacy, about bias in the algorithms, about the impact on jobs, and even about the loss of human creativity. They want the efficiency, but not at the cost of their values.
And this quote from the research just perfectly captures the real motivation here. This shows it's not about a fear of robots taking over, it's a deeply human fear of being made irrelevant, of not being able to keep up with how fast their industry is changing, and of losing a competitive edge. The desire to learn is really a desire to stay in the race.
So what does all this tell us? Well, the data doesn't just reveal a problem, it actually points directly to a solution. It gives us a clear blueprint for how to teach AI in a way that actually works for these professionals.
The overall message couldn't be clear. Yes, people want the benefits of AI, but they won't and they can't engage with it unless the learning process respects their time, their values, and their intelligence. It has to be safe, it has to be simple, and fundamentally, it has to be human-centered. And this brings us to the final takeaway, the blueprint itself. Effective AI training isn't about theory. It has to be practical.
with tools people can use immediately. It has to be ethical, addressing those concerns about privacy and bias head-on. It has to be accessible, fitting into their packed schedules. It must be hands-on, because people learn by doing. And above all, it has to be human-centered, designed for real people, not just for technologists.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Look around at your own organization, your team, or even your own personal development. Are you creating an environment that meets people where they are and addresses these very real, very human needs? Because that is the only way we're going to truly unlock the potential of AI for everyone.